We're now going back to where we went yesterday at the accident, the scene of the accident that killed former Bosasa CEO Gavin Watson. And Chriselda Lewis is standing by for us there. Chriselda, I hear you are with someone there?
Well, that's right, Desiree. Following that shocking news, of course, yesterday of the accident that killed, of course, the Bosasa CEO, Gavin Watson. You'd recall there'd been a flurry of media here. And, of course, widespread coverage, of course, relating to that tragic accident involving Mr. Gavin Watson. And late yesterday afternoon, we had learnt, of course, that the legal representatives of Gavin Watson's family had appointed a well-renowned expert to look into this accident, basically to reconstruct the scene of this accident, to establish exactly what had taken place. You'd recall Conrad Lotter is the man who's been hired to do that. He's been hired by the legal representatives of the family to look into this accident, to find any clues in terms of what has happened. You'd remember Conrad Lotter was also an expert witness in the Duduzane Zuma culpable homicide trial of 2014. He was the expert witness who testified in that trial, basically who said that Duduzane Zuma, according to what he had found, had not been speeding. So he's the man who's been hired to look into this accident by the legal representatives of Mr. Gavin Watson's family. He joins me now live at the accident scene, where you can see now work has clearly already began into this accident. Mr. Gavin Lotter, Mr. Conrad Lotter, thank you very much for your time. Clearly, I can see this morning work has begun into establishing exactly what happened in yesterday's accident in the early hours of the morning.
That's correct. There's still a lot of work to be done. At this stage, we don't have that much information, which means I'm in the process of just gathering information as far as possible.
But obviously you'll be looking for clues in terms of what could have happened. I see you're also taking quite a number of photographs, and what exactly will you be analysing?
At this stage, we will be analysing any possible explanation of the specific incident. And I have to say that during my investigation so far, based on things like the layout of the road, I've probably identified 3 additional things that we need to look at, which means we have to investigate in a lot of detail.
Would you be willing to just a little bit just share with us what you may have picked up, Conrad? I know that you're still busy with your investigation, and there's not much that you can say, but you know, this has really garnered a lot of interest.
Okay, at this specific stage, I'm not allowed to say anything specifically in relation to it, except for the fact that we are looking at any possible explanation of the incident.
Mr. Lotter, I have to ask, you know, there are more questions than answers at this stage. You've been hired to find those answers. When you say any possibilities, are you talking about whether it was just a normal accident, or whether there may have been possible foul play, or any other eventualities?
Okay, to explain it on the 2 extremes, the one extreme would be, it could be an easy explanation, like a medical condition of the person in the vehicle on the one side, but at the same time you have to investigate it as if it is a murder scene, which means a lot of detail needs to go into that investigation.
Right. So are you saying that part of your investigation forms part of as if it would be a murder scene? Is that what you're saying?
That's actually how any investigation should be done where a motor vehicle collision occurs. Okay, that's the problem, it isn't being done like that. Okay, the moment that they do it in that amount of detail, we'll solve a lot more cases in any case.
All right. So talk to us a bit about how reconstruction happens. I know you've been in this industry for more than 20 years. I think it's 23 years, Mr. Lotter. Talk to us about how a scene is reconstructed. I mean, what exactly are you looking for? I know you're carrying a camera here. I don't have much detail about or expertise about how all of this happens in this particular case, in this instance.
Okay, basically in this specific case, well, the process will be, first of all, to gather all the evidence from the scene itself. Okay, then I will have to investigate the vehicle. Then I'll have to get information regarding the background of everything leading up to the incident. And then you have to analyze all the information that you have in order to determine most probable scenarios. That's all.
And the possible scenarios that you are looking at this stage?
I'm not willing to say at the moment.
Any indication of what your preliminary thoughts may be? Obviously, you have to gather all the data from here, but preliminary?
At this moment, nothing. I'm completely open-minded and considering all possible options.
All right. So when you say possible options, just finally, I know you can't say much, Mr. Lotter, but are you investigating just a normal accident? Are you investigating a possible murder? Are you investigating anything else?
As I indicated, it can be even a medical condition of the person involved. That means one needs to wait for the post-mortem report. It could be anything. Okay, that's why you need to be completely open-minded and not zoom into one specific aspect. So at this stage, as I say, it's just the gathering of information.
Right.
Okay.
When are you likely to have some indication? How long does the process itself take?
It will depend on the rate at which some information becomes available. In some cases, it can take a few months for certain reports to be available. So I cannot say with any certainty what time one can connect to this.
In terms of the impact with which we saw the vehicle yesterday, and we're standing just here near the barrier that the vehicle hit, I mean, is there any clues or indication at this stage?
Okay, at this stage that actually relates to some of the physical evidence, and I'm not prepared to say anything in relation to that right now.
All right. I respect that. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. Mr. Conrad Lotter there, who is on the scene of yesterday's accident. You can see here, Desiree, work has already begun. He's here taking photographs and analysing this area where the accident had taken place involving Mr. Gavin Watson. So obviously you can see he's been hired by the family, the legal representatives of the family to look into what could have caused the crash in the early hours of yesterday morning that killed Mr. Gavin Watson. So he says a report into something like this is likely in a couple of months, but it seems that the legal representatives as well as the family have moved at speed to try and get to the bottom of what happened during yesterday's accident. He says he's not ruling out any possibilities. He's open-minded in this investigation or reconstruction of the scene that he is busy with. They're not ruling out anything. The medical condition of Mr. Gavin Watson, you would know, of course, that the speedometer had clocked at 140 kilometers, and all of that will need to be taken into account. Mr. Lotter says all eventualities. He says in any instance, when they do begin this work, they look at possibilities of murder. They don't rule anything out. So it seems like it will be a wide-scale investigation, a reconstruction of the scene itself to establish exactly what had happened. As so far, in terms of any comment, Desiree, from the family, nothing yet, apart from that statement that we received yesterday from Mr. Papa Lishabane. It was one of the directors of Bosasa, who had basically said that the family wants privacy during this time to mourn the loss of Mr. Gavin Watson. And of course, you would know that he was also due to appear before the Revenue Service, SARS, on a tax-related inquiry. So it'll be very interesting also to note, how that goes ahead, how SARS also, in terms of its policy, then does recover monies from the estate of a deceased. Those are some of the questions that we will be asking. But as you can see here, a lot of the work has been done. Some police officers also who were also in this area just a few moments ago. But towards my right-hand side, you may not be able to see at this stage. I'm not sure if Kwazi Manzi would be able to just tilt his camera towards the back of me there. You would see this investigation is quite widespread. The man who was at the center of investigating this particular crash on the part of the family and the legal representatives of Mr. Gavin Watson's family is looking at this entire part heading towards the airport, him walking towards the far area from where the car had been approaching this particular area towards the park area here at OR Tambo International Airport. So all eventualities are obviously being looked at this point. You can see where he is. They're taking quite a number of photographs. So an intense investigation certainly is something that is required in this particular instance. I guess with all the speculation that has been going around, of course, the man at the center of scandals at Bosasa relating to money laundering, to corruption, as well as massive bribes for government tenders. That's the evidence, of course, that we heard at the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. So I guess the family would want some kind of clarity and closure pertaining to exactly what happened to Mr. Gavin Watson. And you can see now that work, of course, is getting underway just a few hours the next day after that accident had taken place with, of course, the reconstructive expert, which has been hired by the family, the legal representatives of the family, on the scene at this particular hour, trying to gain some clues into exactly what happened.
Well, there you have it there, Chriselda Lewis, on efforts in terms of how to reconstruct an accident, and trying to get answers there from Conrad Lotter, who is a accident reconstruction expert. Let's take a